On this week's show, discussing the reality of computer vision with Marty Beard from AlwaysAI. And this week's news, retaining traveling labor, predictions for 2023 in technology and construction. Jacob, good morning. Welcome back from the break. How was it, my man? How are you feeling on this first day back? I know it's our recording day, but it's the first day back from vacation-ish.
Hey, that makes it even more of a better day, just be a recording day, not have to deal with all the problems. I can ignore them for one more day.
Yeah, that's exactly how I wanted to start it. I want my 2 hours back and not reading through email. So I said, hey, let's do this recording. And we have a fantastic guest who jumped in to join us, kicked off his new year with us as well, at least the new year back at work. Marty Beard. Marty, how are you?
I am awesome. Good to be here. Good way to start off the year.
Yeah, I'm really excited. We're going to have some fun. Marty's got some, he taught me a little bit before we went to break, and I thought it'd be a great thing to bring him on. So thanks for coming in. Before we get into the show, we got to talk about the cause of the show, mental health and suicide awareness. It's one of the biggest problems in construction. We have a new partnership, so stay tuned. You're going to see some new things coming across. Keep that date open for March 27th to 29th, 2023 for the Construction Working Minds Open Summit. Go to constructionworkingminds.org/summit. If you need anything or resources for your company, go to visit preventconstructionsuicide.com. That's preventconstructionsuicide.com for more information. If you are in dire need, dial 988 or text 988 from your mobile phones now for a resource nationally. Hey guys, we are back on YouTube. That's right. We're going back to the YouTube. We're leaving Vimeo in the dust and we're headed to back to the promised land of YouTube. So check us out at youtube.com/@the ConTech Crew. New snippets. Hey, those episodes are coming across over there, so check them out. Before we jump into our guest interview, I spoke with Lauren Lake, co-founder and COO of Bridget, about workforce planning for contractors. I'm here with Lauren Lake, co-founder and COO of Bridget. So why don't you let everybody know a little bit about what is Bridget Bench?
So Bridget Bench is a workforce planning software product designed specifically for large-scale general contractors. My business partner and I both came from construction families, and when we started talking to some of the largest general contractors in the US, the challenge around workforce planning was something that we saw all of the big players were struggling with. And it was a very manual process. So we were able to build a very simple web-based product to replace what was otherwise done on whiteboards, Post-it notes, and spreadsheets.
Workforce planning has become a really important thing for top general contractors, and they're seeking out a dedicated solution. You know, how's Bridget supplying that solution?
One of our customers was saying that it became really clear to him that he needed a workforce planning product when he walked past the workforce planning meeting in his office and he saw a whole bunch of people all gathered around a big whiteboard using Post-it notes, trying to allocate their hundreds of employees. And he knew how much money each of those people in the room were making. And so that was really the trigger to go and look for a product. He came across our product, which is really just replacing that manual process. You're not using whiteboards, you're using just a web-based product. And you're able to see quickly all of the employees that you have, all of the projects that you have running, and being able to understand your utilization rate, allocate those people effectively, and really make sure that the planning process is running much more efficiently.
And we're back. All right, Marty, let's jump into this. AlwaysAI. I jumped on a call with you, started talking computer vision. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got here. You have an interesting story. You come from outside the construction industry, and we love that in the business. So give us a little bit about your history, and we'll get up to this computer vision-y thing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I've been in software, Silicon Valley for many, many years, and I spent a lot of time in what's called enterprise software, basically, things like databases and big enablers of applications and all that. I kind of came through that, and then I went into mobile. So I got really heavy into mobile messaging and everything happening on a mobile device, and that was a wild ride as the whole world just went to mobile apps and so forth. I was right in the middle of that. did a couple of turnarounds. And really, what does that mean? That means helping companies kind of right size and get going in the right direction and so forth. Worked on that. But at the end of the day, got really interested in vision and how vision was going to play out in our lives. I think we all see it in our personal lives and so forth. But it was like, how's that going to impact the business world? So that's really what got us thinking about kind of vision on the edge, so to speak, and how's that going to play out in our work lives. And
So
that
I
was
want to,
really the genesis. Yeah.
yeah, I want to step you back because you say, I'm looking naturally at computer vision and vision. And I
Yeah.
think it's like looking back and talking to somebody about the iPhone and,
Yeah.
looking at your history of coming through mobile and thinking like 7 years ago, even 10 years ago, we did not
Yeah.
think that, but now it's commonplace. So that
Yeah.
had to be I feel like that's kind of where you're sitting right now when it comes to this next phase. So
Yeah.
how is it something are you that forefront looker that's like, hey, I see that. I got to go
I
get
don't know.
that.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I mean, I think it's definitely we all feel it. So I've kind of gone through this where intelligence is getting pushed, you know, to our desktop, to our laptop, to our phone, and now what's happening is it's actually getting embedded out in the real world, right? So this is kind of a shit, like a march that we've been on in tech, pushing intelligence further and further and further out to actually the edge where it happens. And with mobile phones, I'm asking the phone to do something, right? I grab my phone, I click an app, and I ask it to do something. In this world we're entering, I didn't ask that. It's actually happening in real time, where I am. Simple example, now I grab my phone and I order a latte on my Starbucks app, right? I ask the app to do that. In the future, I walk in, it knows that Marty's, addicted to his, venti lattes, right? And he just walked in, let's get the latte going so we can hand it to him. Like I didn't, so that's the world that we're heading towards, where the outside world is acting for us based on this intelligence that's being gathered.
It's a unique perspective because that is kind of the natural progression. Although, like you said, it feels a little bit weird, but
Yeah.
hey, how about if I'm walking down the street and Starbucks just opens up and says,
Yeah.
hey, you love that latte? We got those egg bites you like. So anybody who
Yeah.
travels with me knows that's my thing. And you go, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna pop
Yeah.
in there and do that. So
Yeah.
it's an
Yeah.
interesting transition.
It is. And I think, we're in the middle of it, all of us right now, right? So, for example, I get my iTunes playlist. It's like, wow, this dude's really into early Grateful Dead. Let's give him more Grateful Dead. Whatever it is, right? It's actually doing it for me. I didn't ask it to do that. And then I kind of gets better over time. It gets more intelligent. So I think cameras, it's a visual world, right? We're just visual. Humans are visual. It's probably one of the strongest senses that we have, if not the most important sense that we have. And so the question was, okay, how's vision going to play out in this world that we were just talking about? And obviously, it's going to play out in a big way.
Yeah, it's another one there because when you talk about what we just talked about with Starbucks, I know there are a number of people listening in that hopefully you guys stayed straight down the road and you're not weaving your cars, yelling at us, or throwing your phones into the back of the car right now to get away from it. But you are seeing it like with Pandora and with Spotify and with some of these other things that are just, they're learning you. You have your Googles in your house, you have your Amazon, Echoes in your house that are learning things about you and are providing you opportunity. So you're using this already, but you're talking about extending this to vision. And that's where I think commonly when I hear computer vision, I think reality capture right away.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you kind of reset me with. So talk to me a little bit about the differences in that.
Yeah. So what are we talking about? We're talking about cameras that probably are already out there in the world. And we're leveraging what's called, artificial intelligence, fancy word for prediction. So we're just leveraging those cameras that are out there to look at things that are happening, to identify those things and provide you, the user, some information, right? So you're asking the camera to identify materials, to identify personal protective equipment, to identify buildings, siding, whatever it is you told the camera to look for, you've, quote, trained it to look for that. That's all that AI is doing, is it's just training to look for something, getting smart to do it, and giving you that information. Totally different from reality capture, which is kind of like I'm taking a video of my job site, for example, and it's just a video, right? So I didn't ask it to look for specific things. It's just capturing everything that's going on. It's not telling me about what it sees. Yeah, I could go back and say, oh, 11 a.m. on Tuesday, this thing happened, right? I can look at the video, I can review it. That's different. What I'm talking about is more proactive. It's like I'm actually looking for things that you told me to look for right now. And I'm going to let you know in real time, oh, I see that. I expected 10 workers, there are 12. Okay, I didn't expect that. So maybe I should be notified about that. That's just a simple example. So it's just leveraging existing cameras to identify objects. Tech loves weird phrases like, objects, track objects, whatever it is, and let me know in real time. So I don't have to review it a week from now. I just know right now. There's somebody up on a roof and they're not tied in appropriately. Maybe I should know that, right? And so that's just, these are just examples.
Yeah, that's great. And I kind of compare it to the fact that like reality capture is something that happens at a moment in construction, but then they go back to an analyzation point later down the road. You don't get that information and analyzation of it till you go back to a place where you can use it. And then this is really the idea of analyzing and providing information immediately so you can use it moving forward. And I think there's a huge tie between the two actually moving forward, where being able to kind of consistently track stuff. But the other thing too is we talked about Spotify and Pandora. Those were very localized instances of this going on. This sounds more interoperability, where it's going between different sets and saying, I'm going to provide information to other ingredients and allow that to start putting more, data making decisions into how we move forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah. And really it comes down to, and now we geek out a little bit. It comes down to, what are you asking the camera? Let's do it. What are you asking the camera to look for? Right. So the more data that you provide to, quote, train the camera, then the more complex it gets. So let's say I'm looking for vehicles on the site as well as people, as well as, okay, what are the people wearing hard hats and PPE? Oh, are they in areas that maybe are not covered by my insurance policy? Oh, I'm also looking for materials. So every time that I add something, to your point about that I'm looking for, it's getting a bit broader. It's getting a bit more complex, but it's still, cameras are dumb until you tell them to be smart, right? So it's kind of like, it's only going to go look for the thing that you told it to look for, right? If you didn't tell it to look for animals, it's not going to say, hey, there's a dog, right? You have to tell it that's what I'm looking for, right? So it's so-called training the data and training the camera to do what you want it to do, and then give you that information in real time. I think a lot of people hear this and they're like, okay, it's some fancy camera. It's like super expensive. No, it's actually trying to leverage what you probably already have installed. Or, okay, if you need to install a new camera, these are not expensive, right? And we can walk through that, but it's really leveraging what you probably already have out there.
Yeah, for me, that was the critical kind of switch point for me, because as we think about construction and we always think about a tech stack, we're always thinking about what do we need at the time that we need it. And when we're talking about reality capture and having to do processing, we're thinking about, are we putting things in place? Can we go back, in the need of like, Jacob, you're in facilities. So we need something in facilities and we've got to go, cut into a wall, move. So reality capture has its place, but it takes going off and processing. And this is more about like, hey, what are we doing right now and how can we influence it? I know that AlwaysAI plays in a couple of different areas. Tell me how this is kind of impacting maybe like some of the other areas so people can kind of digest, because it's new to construction. So it's nice to understand it from another perspective.
Yeah, I mean, we're doing like, think of retail, right? So we do work, for example, with Burger King, where, okay, what do they want to know? They want to know that you're being served well and as quickly as possible as you go through the process. So they literally want to know, okay, Marty walked in, he ordered, he then waited, he then got his order and he left. That took, let's say, 3 minutes, right? So how do we improve our margins? We would like to do that in 2 minutes and 45 seconds, right? We would like to do that a little bit faster if we could. So that's like a simple example. Or somebody comes into a drive-through. You're going through a drive-through. Okay, how many cars are in the drive-through? How long is it taking for a car to get through? Did Marty get the right bag of burgers and stuff that he ordered? Did we get that matched up? I mean, these are just kind of simple examples, right? Or think of a you go to a football game, or you go to a basketball game, you go into a big venue. Okay, how many people are in the venue? Where's it getting too busy? How do we serve people faster? So a lot of it is kind of getting real-time information about what's happening and then trying to improve, like, for example, speed of service, or make sure, let's reduce the number of mistakes that we have. And then obviously you get all kinds of safety and security type applications that are super common. And we are working with construction companies, as well as big venues, as well as, I said, like retailers, manufacturers. I'll give you one more quick example. We're working with a lumber manufacturer. They want to know, okay, that could be a really dangerous environment. If lumber comes in, lumber gets cut, then it goes over here. Is that process happening as efficiently and as safely as it could? But at the end of the day, it's about margin, right? People are trying to improve their business, right? So in construction, I would imagine it'd be like, okay, can I maybe reduce my direct labor costs or my direct material costs through cameras? How do I do that? Or maybe my overhead could be less, like my insurance policy is really expensive.
Yep.
Maybe I could reduce, the cost of that by installing some cameras that allow me to know something bad is about to happen. Let me stop it. So, I mean, there's a lot of just really simple examples of it. This stuff is not that expensive to do. Cameras are getting cheaper. The software is not that expensive, et cetera. So those are just some quick examples.
Now, do you guys have the ability to tie into other type of sensors? So, there's already people on job sites now that are wearing let's say they're wearing some type of, health device on their wrists, an iWatch. They're being tracked, or they're using some type of safety vest that's tracking them around the site and monitoring stuff. Are you guys able to start tying that stuff together?
That's a great question. Is what we can tie together is any data that comes in through a sensor, like a visual. It's got to be a visual image. So you're talking about a video clip or some kind of a JPEG, some kind of a visual image, right? Not necessarily like body information that's not
Okay.
visually captured. So we're talking about, I need data. When I say I need data to train an AI model, what does that mean? I need visual data. I need visual clips. I need visual data,
Yeah.
right? And there's so many sensors out in the world today, so including on your phone, and so it's a matter of collecting that visual data. But no, Jacob, we haven't gotten into yet non-visual inputs, like, for example, voice. Right, we're using our voice more
Mhm.
and more to ask things, to do things. We haven't really brought that in yet. Down the road.
So I want to talk about a little bit more of kind of what I'm starting to see. You talked about a lumber manufacturer. You talked about moving people through a Burger King a little bit more efficiently, or through the drive-through a little bit more efficiently. To me, that leans to two things, big things we've got going in construction. Lean. Right? The lean technique is all about, we consistently talk about saving labor costs, but to me, it's not about saving labor cost as much as it's about increasing the throughput and decreasing the friction.
Exactly.
We've seen this in a number of places. How can, maybe somebody who's thinking about it, and this is what I thought was cool, is like, I know you have an open pack and you can say, here, go do it yourself, but you also have kind of a, we'll help you. Let's walk you down this path.
Oh, yeah.
So how would somebody go about like using computer vision to maybe get interested in throughput? Do you have anybody doing that yet in the construction world?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, we're working with companies like Swinerton, where we're helping them on kind of safety applications. And they actually are there. When I mentioned the lumber manufacturing, they actually do that. That's one thing that they do up in Oregon through their subsidiary called Timber Lab. So we're working with them on that. Look, it's why don't we go through? It's pretty easy to do this stuff. So the very first thing is just collecting data. So what does that mean? We just need to get some video images. We will actually help the company do that. If they say, well, we don't have those images or I don't have that available, that's fine, right? We already have such a huge database of visual images and computer vision models already available for somebody that we could just start right away, right? I don't need to, like for a Burger King, I don't, if I'm going to work for McDonald's, I don't need to go retrain a whole bunch of new, it's people walking into a building and doing stuff, right? So we can work off existing data, existing images, but somebody might have very specific things they're looking for on their specific job site. Okay. Let's capture some images. We can actually come out and help you do that. I'm not talking about a ton, by the way. So this is not like a multi-week process or anything. That's the first thing. The second thing is once we have that, we have to train the model. Okay, so this gets a little geeky where it's like, okay, what do you mean a model? It's just a framework. It's what's called a neural network. In other words, AI is just mirroring our brains, neural, and our brains think in frameworks, and our brains are just prediction machines. That's all they are. If I see a bunch of trees when I grow up, when I get older, that's a tree. I know that now. That's a tree, right? Mm-hmm. I don't need to know that specific tree. I just know it's a tree. Right, so we're just training the model in these so-called AI frameworks, right? This is where engineers and PhDs like to try to intimidate you, and you're like, "Oh, you're just talking about probability. Got it. I think I can handle that." Okay, so you put it into a model, an AI model. We have all the major models. Nobody has to figure this out on their own. We do it for them, and then the model's now done. It's been trained. So then we need to get it out on the camera, right? We just do this through Wi-Fi or through the internet. We just put it out on the camera and then it starts running. So for example, let's say you're looking for material that's been delivered. It's just looking. And when it sees it, it'll let you know. There's the material. Oh, it's different than what you thought it would be, or it's too much or too little, or it's getting put into the wrong space. So you're just getting this information in real time. And then the last part is, okay, how do I see the information? That's the fancy phrase, analytics. You're just analyzing it. So how are you analyzing it? On the web. It's just getting pumped into your website. You're able to see it. I can do that for you. AlwaysAI has what we call dashboards to help you do that. So it's a long way of saying that's the basic process. AlwaysAI will just come in and do it. Right. So if you say, I don't have the people, the time, the energy, but I know what I want to do. I know what the business objective is. I want to improve my margins. I'm struggling to hit 8% operating margin. I want to get it to 10. I think cameras can help me do that. Let's go. And so we'll just attack it.
Yeah, I love that because we're seeing that out of other groups that are kind of doing like Versatile, doing some work around, you're picking when you're doing your crane picks, but they're not predicting, is that material in the right place? So a camera can say, hey, did we do the material stacking the night before? Did the material show up? B, did we stack it and prep it for the picks tomorrow?
Exactly.
Because if you can send that to a foreman that says, hey, look, the team left the site without doing that, you're going to have a crane operator and a crew of, steel iron workers, other people on site not working.
Yeah.
There's your percentages back. So I think that's a unique use.
Exactly.
And I love how it's stacked in. You guys can see why I was fully geeking out on this. Cause the other thing was when you showed me the Swinerton model, right? We saw a job site model, but we also saw the timber factory model, and that clicked for me because one of the problems with offsite construction and our ability to kind of let go and let it happen is we don't have visibility. We don't see what's happening in that factory. We don't see the timber. But now, if you're telling me I can see the timber on the line for my job cut and going through the line, and then I can have a camera on the site waiting for it to get there. Y'all can figure out how to connect it in between.
Yeah.
We're not going to worry about that, but at least we can connect those two. Now we're starting to connect manufacturing
that's right.
to job site.
Yeah. If you're if you're kind of a control freak, this is like an awesome, awesome application for you, because I mean, and like any tech, you can overdo it and just get too much data that's not really useful. So you want to be really thoughtful, but you're right. I mean, yeah, like the material was supposed to be delivered and put into that area, and it wasn't. You should probably be alerted about that, so you can call the supplier and say, hey, where is it? Or you got billed for 12 people that were supposedly at this place at this time, but hey, there's only 8, right? And I don't know where the other 4 is. There might be a good reason for it. This isn't just like surveillance. It's kind of, I'm trying to get, real information about what's going on. But yeah, I mean, these things could, look, if I can improve my margin by like a 1%, 2%, I mean, that's huge, right? It's on a big project. We hear a lot about insurance as well, and just to throw that in there, because I know in your guys' world, it's like tons of different types of insurance that has a huge impact on your overhead. And hey, this might be a way to really reduce the premiums and the cost of that. So there's lots of ways to, at the end of the day, I totally get that it's like, look, I'm running a complicated project. I need to make money, and I need to get that real-time insight to help me, be more efficient and make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I actually even said the term data driven decisions earlier, but I'm going to go back to Jeff here as data informed. And that's what you're talking about there. It's the idea that we're not surveilling. We're not going to sit here. We're not trying to nitpick. The other 4 people that aren't on camera might have a good reason, and I'm being billed for them. But you're at least being informed about it. You're at least having that information in front of you to go with it. Now,
that's right.
I want to turn it a little bit more towards what construction has seen over the past 10 years, and that's becoming more of a virtual stance. So as you're talking about this data vision, well, we do everything visually in a virtual environment before it actually happens on site. And it creates a huge opportunity I really see here is we even get to a point where we call 4D modeling. It's the 3D modeling, but adding time into it so we can see how it schedules and comes across. If we get detailed with that, do you think we could actually compare a real vision versus a virtual model and kind of compare where we are? Because I could even see that to a point of, we know where we're supposed to be on, January 3rd, 2023. And it's telling us, well, we're 6% behind schedule. And can this consistently update and let us know, where an owner might really like to know that too?
No, absolutely. It's kind of like computer vision that we're talking about is almost like, it's giving you a visual audit, I guess is a way to put it, of what's actually happening. This is what's actually, and then that could feed into your own modeling. Are we doing this the right way? Are we doing it as efficiently? Or did we actually design it in the way that makes sense for the actual reality of the physical space we're in, right? And so forth. Yeah. No, so that term visual audit, that gets used a lot with our customers. It's almost like, I have a capability to see what's actually happening. That's, at the end of the day, that's really what it comes down to, right? And
I saw Jeff write that one down too. I love that visual audit. That's gonna be a good one.
I don't know if this plays out in construction as much as other places, but obviously we've had just a huge labor crunch, right? And there's just not as many people to hire. You guys are, not as many people to hire as we need to. And in a what that did is it forced automation. It just forced it. So some people feel like, computer vision technologies like I'm into, just got pushed forward 5-10 years because, we got to go now. Like I gotta automate now. Right. And so we're seeing that in really interesting spaces. Like, you guys all experience, you go to the store, you don't want to wait in line. So you check out yourself, you do self checkout. That's just an example. It's called contactless checkout. That's happening more and more. We're working in that space. It's a really interesting and complicated space. But again, why did that happen and why is it moving so fast? Because of labor constraints. So I think construction's going to look for, like you said, opportunities to automate. It's going to have to. It's going to find out, I can actually do this. It actually does help me maintain control, and I actually can make more margin. And, I feel like we're right on the cusp of that. There's just more and more willingness to experiment and try this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think it's a kind of a matter of a perfect storm of pressure on, the complicated nature of what we're building, the, just labor shortages that we have, the strains on materials that we have. And Marty, we might take you to somewhere where the listeners are going to get this and you're just going to ride along with us. But Jacob, I have this idea right now of like, you guys modeling and doing all that work in BIM and then syncing this thing through something like Synchro and going forward in time and backward in time, using the old Charlie Dunn future. I'm a time traveler, time traveling into the future virtually before we do it, then rolling back, then applying something like AlwaysAI to say like, where was Synchro wrong? Where did we miss? What did we miss? How could we have done that better? And when we get off kilter, again, it's not about, when you look at carrot and stick in construction, they're very different. If we can carrot at a day's mistake or mismove, we can put the entire ship back on course and save that margin and save all of that. I mean, that to me is starting to become, and then we get all the way out there. We use things like open space, instruction site, and reality capture, and Faro, and all of these laser scans. And we have that future building. We get it into your hands, Jacob, and you could tell me, hey, wait a minute. Like that was awesome for how you built it, but it's not working for how I'm managing it and how this building is operating. So, and again, if you take what Marty's doing and talking about when it comes to working in stadiums and working in fast food and retail, isn't that what we're doing in the built environment that we just built? So can't we now start to apply the models? I'm sorry, but I've been having a little bit of fun on the break thinking about this. So I'm just thinking about that stack for a second, Jacob, and I'm turning you into a person here so Marty can hang along with us. What do you think of that, man?
Jeff, there's a couple things onto that. And one, yes, absolutely, with the BIM, the 4D, and then this analyzation on top of it, being able to provide that data. But, and like you said, you might be able to correct the course or get the ship back on track. It's not necessarily even that though, too, but look at what you were talking about before we started here. You guys have had how many days of snow, and how much does that impact a job site right now? Maybe you can't, because of this weather, you can't get back on track. But if AlwaysAI is already telling us we have had snow, nobody's on site, this is impacting schedule, we are informed now to know that we are already behind schedule. Do we have the opportunity to make it up? Or at least does the owner and the client know, look, these are things we can't help, but this is the new schedule. Everything kind of can push backwards and kind of update within the 4D and Synchro. That kind of gives more of the sense of relief and not pressure, right? Because usually when snow days, rain days happen, it's all of a sudden more pressure. It's all of a sudden, crap, we lost 4 days of construction. We got to make them up. Well, if we can actually show this within an actual dashboard and actual information to the client saying, look, this is what's happening, but this is our solution. We're going to do what we can to keep on track. But here's also the new schedule for us to keep pushing towards. It's amazing, because that really is kind of more the hope for pre-construction, right? Like when we would be able to have this idea of, we can predict how this is going to play out. But then when we get to that point that it's not playing out correctly, we have reasons why. And then we can also adjust and we can keep going. And that's huge. The other thing too with AlwaysAI, and this is always something I've always thought about with facility management, BIM, and this type of analyzation, this type of AI information, life safety. If you are in a high rise that is on fire, how do we know where people are on what floor and how we get them out?
Yeah. Right.
It's amazing. Tyson Krupp had this, they have an elevator research and development lab over in Germany, and it's this big high rise and everything, but they have some AI and they have a BIM that kind of looks at it and everything. They will send elevators to the floors with people on them to pull them off. So you still use the elevators. It's still the way you go, but they know exactly where those people are. So you're not just, having people hope and wait and then they're stuck. It literally goes to that floor, gets them off, goes to the next one, gets them off. And that's the kind of thing I see with facility management. You talk about stadiums. How do we make sure we get people out of stadiums if there is an event? That is huge because everybody's going to go to one exit funnel, and then, you know, you have trampoline issues. How do we redirect them? How do we kind of see that? And AlwaysAI seems like a great opportunity here.
So we've given you a little time to think about it. For me, it's about feeding it back into pre-construction. You hit it, Jacob. It's about feeding back into pre-construction so that we can use all of this information to not only inform what we're doing now, but what we do next and how we build it. So I'm wondering, we give you a little time there, Marty, because I know we threw one out of left field on you. What are your thoughts?
No, I mean, so Jacob he got me thinking about, and we'll just dive into what can sometimes be a kind of a controversial topic, but it's like, okay, people counting and people tracking, right? Because what Jacob was talking about is like, hey, how many people are in an area? I don't want to double count those people, right? So if Marty's over there, I don't want to double count him again if he's over here. I'm just trying to, how many people are in a space? How many specific number of people are in a space? So I think we're going to get into a world, Jeff, where it's kind of like, okay, what kind of information am I allowed what kind of information do I need to know about the people in a space? What kind of information are they willing to provide? Right. So you may have people that say, yes, you can actually identify me specifically, not just a body, but Marty Beard. Right. Those are two different things. One is object detection of a person, just a generic person. I know that's a person. The other one is a specific individual. So do I need to know that specific individual? So you get into all these kinds of issues, and a lot of our clients are working with that. We work with here's kind of a not as scary sounding scenario, but it's like a, lazy boy furniture retail outlet. They just want to know the person walking in is a customer, not an employee. Well, how would you know that? You need to register the employees, right? So you know that's one of my employees versus a customer. Simple example, but that gets into, is that employee willing to provide that information and so forth. So my brain went into, a lot of what you're talking about is kind of people identification and tracking, and how's that helpful for me, and how do I make the world safer and so forth, while I preserve privacy and allow people to have some sense of autonomy. Like I am willing to give you that information. A lot of people are. I am willing to give Starbucks that information. When I walk in, if you get my latte going, I am happy. Go ahead and do that. I'm okay with that, right? But other people say, no, I don't want to provide that information. So we start getting into these areas, and I think over the next year, 2 years, a lot of AI and computer vision is going to work through those as we work through these applications. That's where my brain went on that one.
I love it, because I think, look, if you're a construction worker and you're coming onto the site, most of these sites we have, not only do we have safety inspections and safety rules and identification rules already, like you're signing up for that. And it's because we're doing this to improve and keep you safe. And we want to know if somebody comes on site that we have not seen before. And I saw this in looking at the product itself, is that you're going to identify that that's not doesn't match any of these people. So we've got something we've got to deal with. We've got somebody here that we don't know and we can't identify. But you've also done it in a way on others where you're like, look, we don't know who those people are. We know enough about them from the video that I go back to this, like, it's like nobody's, this is my IT geek, but nobody realizes that like your internet Wi-Fi card has a special ID on it that was attached to it. It doesn't really identify anything about you, but it literally is, it makes you unique. So that uniqueness, without identifying who you are, can allow Marty to say, hey, I was in that Lazy Boy store and I was at the front right. Now I'm at the back right, and we have an incident up front. I'm not double counting and looking for me up front and in the back. I know the flow. And so, and that for us aligned with some of the other things you've talked about, Jacob, with sensors, et cetera, that we're already carrying. Imagine, we know where people are and we can react faster. That's the critical component to all things in construction, whether it's safety, whether it's productivity, whether it's any of it. So I love seeing this. So Marty, I want you to, You've taught me a lot already. I mean, I've been researching this over the break. If anybody can't tell, Jacob referred to the fact that we're in a snow cycle here in town. So it's literally been skiing and geeking out, which is probably why I'm so excited right now. And hoping it just continues. Looking forward with computer vision and construction and kind of the things, Marty, where do you see and where might somebody listening in who's just gotten like, whoa, this is cool. What should they be thinking about?
So predictions, right? And Silicon Valley loves to come up with dramatic predictions, but it's probably not going to be as dramatic as we think. I think what's going to happen this year is just incremental improvement in making this stuff happen without spending a ton of money. So, but by that I mean the cameras that you need or you may already have are not going to be as expensive, but guess what? They're going to be more powerful. Right? They just we're able to do more and more and more with the technology that we have. The AI models that we've been talking about are going to get more powerful and smaller footprint. In other words, that means that I can shove even more intelligence onto the edge. So I can do even more out on the edge with the power and the processing capability that I have. So I think given that let's just call it the infrastructure is getting more powerful and also getting more cost effective, people are just going to do more, right? Because think about it, what's the limit of the applications? It's literally what you can see, right? So what do you want to see? What do you want to do? What do you want to? So I think it's going to be a super exciting year. We're just able to do more and more, and it'll be super fun to watch all these different applications get tested and tried. And like anything in a new technology, phase, there'll be certains that are just, okay, these 10 are just no-brainers. The next 10, these are a little more experimental. And then these next 10, oh, those didn't work. Okay, let's go back. So we're going to go through this process. Construction, I think, it's a physical environment, just to state the obvious. It's a visual environment. It's a real-time environment. So I think this is really well placed to add a lot of value into construction. So we're seeing that we see it in the conversations we're having, just more and more construction companies, people thinking about really interesting things, and we're just excited. I think we're going to see more of it happen.
I think you're right, and I love that we're training things, off major models and pushing them out to the edge devices.
Yeah.
We've always said it's this interesting travel of technology. We move to the cloud, then we move back out to the edge, then we move to the cloud, then we move back out to the edge. So it's the sine curve of where things go, but it's because at the edge, like we always say in construction, it's in the field where things get done, and in the end. I don't care if we're offsite manufacturing, if we're cutting timber and we're pre-cutting and we're prefabbing, we're still putting it together when we get on site. So we got to connect all that. Exactly. So I really appreciate you sitting down. Where can people go check out AlwaysAI if they're interested in learning more about you?
Yeah, AlwaysAI.co, AlwaysAI.co. I mean, that's where there are a lot of tools and tips, and you can actually download our platform and start building computer vision apps and get them running on devices. And we can help you do it if you want us to. So I would just go, that's a great starting place.
I expect you'll get a few people listening in that are going to go check it out. And I wish we did have more time for this interview, but it's time to wrap it up and talk about construction technology news of the week. Before we get into that news, let's listen in on the second half of the conversation I had with Lauren Lake, co-founder and COO of Bridgit. And I'm back with Lauren Lake, co-founder and COO of Bridgit. One of the differences when you change out like this and you use technology is you're looking for key metrics from your customers and being able to, get an understanding of the impact that you're having and influence decision-making is really important. How can Bridgit help with that?
Yes. So one of the big metrics that we show is utilization rate. That was something that when you're using whiteboards or using a spreadsheet, you really can't get access to that number in an easy way. The reality of workforce planning is that it is a very reactive process. Projects are changing all the time, requirements are changing, dates are changing, and so you're always in a bit of a rush trying to understand what information do I have to make the best and fastest decision. With our product, you can actually start to forecast and look at different scenarios out into the future. So some of our customers have different metrics that they're looking at really around utilization rate, knowing that the alarm bells should be going off once we see that utilization rate is dropping below 80% 6 months into the future, or below 60% a year into the future. Looking 6 or 12 months into the future was never something that people were doing very accurately on a whiteboard or a spreadsheet. And that actually allows you to understand your longer term plan and then make the short term reactive decisions in a more solid and stable way.
You know, we got to go after this. There are a couple of giants in the industry when it comes to construction technology, and they're the all-in-one platform that we do everything with a smaller degree of focus put on workforce planning. What are the benefits of going with a dedicated solution like Bridget Bench that might not have maybe some of the resources of the others or some of the other focuses the others have?
For us, we wake up every day, our entire team, thinking only about workforce planning. How do we make this the best product possible? How do we solve all of these very specific needs of the construction industry, which is a very complex, very large industry? Yes, there's lots of big giants in the construction tech market. That's actually a great thing for us because we can integrate with those products. We can make sure that the data going back and forth between our product and their product is very seamless. But then we can offer that best-in-class version of our workforce planning product, which for some products, that doesn't really matter. You don't necessarily need best-in-class for everything, but workforce planning is such a huge lever in a big general contractor's business that it really does make sense to get the best solution possible.
And we're back. Jacob, what have you brought us today? It seems like you might have found a way into the topics here.
You know, this is pretty funny because this actually just came across my my feed, and I was reading through it yesterday. I sent it to myself, and then coming on here to talk about this more. It's almost perfect. So let's see here. MIT Technology Review: a bot that watched 70,000 hours of Minecraft could unlock AI's next big thing. So here we are using the virtual environment the same way that AlwaysAI is using the real environment, and use the AI to do machine learning on Minecraft. And it built a full Minecraft setup out of 70,000 hours of watching video. So as we're going to like take everything we've talked about in the last 6 months and kind of wrap it all together here, it's OpenAI. Instead of GPT, it's VPT. So they're doing video instead of just the generic chat. And this is mind-blowing for construction industry, because this, compared to what everybody's been talking about in the last month about Chat GPT, if we could really train it the same way that Chat GPT responds, we could literally start producing 3D models based off of hours and hours of people modeling. So here's my pitch. Start recording everything you do if you're a Revit modeler out there now. It's just because if we could just let that be watched over and over is going to be key. I mean, there's people out there like Augmenta right now. Augmenta AI is doing the full, hey, we can build out a full, electrical model based off of certain parameters. And that's huge. There's so much time that goes into production on design and coordination sides that it still wages on that, value increase. Like, is it really worth it because we have to put so much time into it? If this could start happening, now they did it with Minecraft, of course. There is no clear goal was what they state with Minecraft, right? It's an open world. You keep going, you do it. These people are just doing random things. But I'm thinking now as we go into it, if we give it a clear goal and we tell it what the end goal is, when it's watching these videos, it's learning to go from point A to B and make it work. Where the open world, it's just kind of learning and kind of go back and do it. But there's just so much to this. And even more so, I'm like, all right, I want to go find this VPT. I want to go to OpenAI and be like, I'm ready. Let's start doing this together, because I would love just to say, hey, I got production staff across the board that just sit around and they're modeling left and right. Well, let's start putting this together. What are your thoughts, Jeff?
Well, so you hit on a couple of things, because now we have people driving off the road and putting tinfoil hats on and thinking like we're never going to work again. And I actually had an argument with a good friend recently about this, and I rethought GPT a little bit for like a hot minute, and then said, wait a minute, we have been doing this in reality for years. And, an homage to the good James Benham. We don't write as much code as we used to, right? If you used to write code and you had to write something like a menu, you'd start from scratch and write the menu from scratch. You don't do that anymore. Like, you reuse assemblies, you reuse code, you adjust that code for you. This is the natural progression of the way that technology works. It doesn't replace the people. We've never been able to catch up to have enough people to do those things. And the bots, at least for years and years, and Marty, you can argue with me when I'm done with this statement, but I don't think general AI is coming for quite a dang long time where they can think for us. So this is the ability for us to give it parameters, to reuse things that have been done hundreds and millions of times before us, to build new and unthought of spaces. So imagine, we had this conversation earlier about utilizing BIM and 4D and AlwaysAI and reality capture and all those things to understand how our buildings are flowing. Well, if we don't have to do all of that nitty gritty, if we as three people in the built environment could think about the way that space is going to be used more and sit and understand the psychological components, the use cases, the changes. 2023 for me, looking forward, we do not use space the way we used to. And we just, as humans, do not understand what the hybrid world is going to look like. So why not spend less time screwing screws into things and hammering nails? And why not do things our construction people, our built environment people, our architects are great at? That's thinking and applying knowledge. That's what the machine can't do. So for me, I know we got a few people that are driving their cars. Now, Marty, you may disagree. What do you think there? Is general AI coming and I can just go get my latte flown to me by a drone and just reach out the window?
Yeah, I don't know about that, but it's coming. So what Jacob was kind of describing is what's called synthetic data. So we're building models, AI models, off virtual data, like a video game, images in a video game. And so I was talking about all these models, and you have to capture video out in the real world, and then you train a model. We're starting to see early situations of, no, I don't have to do that. I can actually just make it up by getting virtual images off the internet and creating a model off that. That's pretty interesting. And that's called synthetic data. So I think, we're going to see more of that. And then that will make these models get more bigger and more sophisticated, and we'll be able to do more. Does that get to the general AI? I think we're a ways from that, but it's moving that way. Starting to move that way.
All right, Jacob, what else you got for us today?
Yeah, so the other one that I brought in here is not as much of, hey, look and read into this and really, understand the story. It's for constructionpros.com. The reason I pulled this one is if you are a contractor out there, okay, so let me start with the title: How to Attract and Retain a Traveling Construction Team During a Labor Shortage. What I really enjoyed about this article is there is so many references to good material out there. Throughout the whole article, they pull different sources and actually use it. They're not just out there with an opinionated article. They actually have a lot of good stuff. So they're pulling stuff from your 2022 U.S. construction cost trends from CBRE. It's really good. And what I like about that is if you are a company trying to fight this, you're not just using your time to read one article and be like, okay, that was great. They give you information to go keep looking and understand how you can actually fight the labor shortage, how you can keep going forward with it, which is big. There's a lot of articles you can read out there. The sources and actually good, relevant sources is key to something like this.
I think you got to go back here, right? The challenge that we have in construction is that a lot of times it's the first time a team is working together. Right. And so holding teams together, even if that's your crew. So when you think about this from a GC perspective and an overall built environment perspective, we're always storming and norming and trying to catch up to this thing. But when you're talking about in the field, people putting in work, it takes time to learn one another. And they're the unique and difficult thing about construction, especially when you start to think about families and people who, have connections to places, is you have to keep those teams together, but the work doesn't just stay in those one areas. And so it really talks a lot about how you attract that talent, retain that talent, and how you're going to have to step up your game down the road to really meet this new work. We just talked about it. The world has changed a bit. So how can you maintain the connectedness, maintain your talent? There's a straight up talent war. We're going to talk about it in the next one. We talked about it with Rose Hall. Talent and the war on talent is real. Whether you like it or not, it's here. Get ready. And that means you must step up your game. And looking at the resources, and I love that, Jacob, is that they did go back and really cite some real hard stats that construction needs, and then pointed to the, to the future, $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill. Like, we got work to do, and who's going to do that? And, there is a, I want to say it's a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a whatever the new hood would be for those teams that are out there of mixed folks that, look, you're putting your life in your hand. It's not something you and I do on a podcast, man. We're like, we're going to, even if this gets cut off in the middle and it's horrible and people don't listen, they turn us off. Like, that's the end. That's not how it works in construction. That's not how teams storm and norm together. You can't beat that. So I love that it went there and talked about a lot of the ways that, teams are going to have to do this. I know, I'll switch this to you, Marty, to your world. Like, that same talent war has been going on for a while in software. Like, that's not new to software either.
No, not at all. And I think we're talking about this real-time world that we're all in. And that means you have to real-time manage, and people want to work on interesting things. They want to absorb data as quickly and efficiently as they can. We're all collaborating across the value chain, like more and more, all of us, right? We work really collaboratively with our customers and partners. And so yeah, I mean, this is an ongoing challenge. And, the generations that's come up in tech, they want to work on interesting things. They want to see their stuff actually used. They want to stay on the cutting edge of tech and have an opportunity to learn those things. So I think I'm fortunate that I'm in a pretty interesting space. Computer vision is kind of a new, interesting space. So I've got that going for me.
Listen, it really applies back to construction right here, Jacob. If you think about it, right. I want to go to the construction company that's pushing the limits when it comes to modern building and modern ways to deliver. And whether that's a mix of technology enabled or, prefabrication or advanced manufacturing and other ideas, you've got to start doing those things, or those people, if they show up on your job site and you hand them a clipboard and you hand them a roll and you say, now go pencil whip people, they're not going to be there for long. And that's great for the industry. I mean, it's great for you, Marty, because you're driving them to a new world and new thoughts. And Jacob, it's great for you because you're doing the same thing at your company. So I dig it, man.
Yep. I love it. It's, adapt to survive. And these companies have to, it's tough for them because they have to adapt in so many different ways now. You got to adapt in diversity. You got to adapt in technology. You got to adapt in your management workflow. Like, it's tough, but you have to. It's great. I did find it, McKinsey & Company article from back in March, the bridging the labor mismatch in U.S. construction. That was another great one. I loved the sources it got to. So, Jeff, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to jump it over because I want to look forward into 2023. We're just getting started in the year, and we've got to look at what's going to happen. And you know me, I went and grabbed this one. This is an interesting one. It was ironpros.com. So 3 Iron Pros construction technology predictions for 2023. It's like the magic 8 ball. What are we going to look forward to? I love that. It's tough to, good Yogi Berra quote, it's tough to make predictions, especially about the future. Well, true. However, for me, I have this thing, everybody's like, oh, history repeats itself. I was like, history doesn't necessarily repeat itself as much as it rhymes with the past. So we can look back and use that as a way to guide us looking forward. The first one I love, though, market consolidation. I hear this, especially in our world, and I'll be interested, Marty, as you grasp this one and think about it, is the microeconomic driven consolidation. the forward look is that we're going to continue to see more and more consolidation of our vendors into, through acquisition, et cetera. And we've been seeing that, and we see that in other industries over time. And there's actually somewhat of a misnomer in our world that, a startup exiting and going to a larger company is a bad thing. The honest truth is 90% of all startups end up being acquired. They don't end up IPOing. They end up becoming a unique part and mostly a useful part of a larger software company that can apply that technology to their suite and do things with it. And this has been going on out in the world with Oracle and Microsoft have been absorbing competitors for years. It's happening in our world. They talk about Trimble with Viewpoint and B2W and eBuilder and Stack Construction out there doing it. And we know Procore had been doing it. And Autodesk is out there doing it. These are not bad things. It's an understanding that that's possibly the out and possibly the way things are going to go. But it also leads to an ability to push more interoperability. When you break down those walls where you're not just working as teams together, you're actually owned by the same company. You have the ability to leverage that technology. It's also great because a lot of you out there are using old architected systems that are going to be hard as can be to modernize and put into our cloud and really make available. Well, sometimes acquiring somebody that's already got that stack made for you, you can start back over and start screwing the screws in and hammering the nails, or you can acquire it and layer it and start to use that as your path. So there's lots of ways. So I just don't want people to be afraid of that. But that leads right into interoperability. I think, Jacob, you and I can hammer this out. I love that they brought up our boy Nathan Wood here and the Common Data Exchange, which is going about things a little differently than maybe some other construction or some other technology groups have done. And it's really mapping out visual frameworks. So little plug, we're going to be getting together in February for another annual CDX event. So check that out. Go to constructionprogress.org. And you will, I think it's constructionprogresscoalition.org. And check it out because, you have people out there in our world. I happened to get a chance to speak at an end of year event for Rivet. And Rivet's been pushing the space for a long time, and we've been looking for them to really, hit the ground. And I think they really are. You're starting to see them come out. So interoperability is the key. And finally, technology coming to the field, which we've been talking about all day with Marty here. It's really about unlocking what we've been able to do in the back, but bring it to the field. If it doesn't help keep people safer, make us install faster, cleaner, make us more predictable in the field, it's almost not worth doing at times, And I think historically we got that wrong. Okay. So I got on my high horse there. Jacob, what are you thinking, buddy?
No, I actually really enjoyed this article. The consolidation is something that's actually happening across all industries right now. It's really being seen technology industry, even all the way to the blockchain industry. You're just seeing basically what is going to survive is the good technology, the good thoughts, the good companies, which is a good thing. It's something that, we have to have these periods where weeds out the worst. And we're hoping that instead of a recession that happens, it's just this consolidation. Then we can kind of keep growing from this point, which gives us a good foundation. So I really like this. It's going to be interesting to see who gets acquired in this next year and see where they're used and what they do with it. But I think you're right. Trimble's really done something interesting. Stack is a company I feel like that's come out of nowhere and really just made a big boom. And I'm excited for it. The interoperability is the key piece. And I think this is really where we see the beginning of a construction software developer and staff for a standard moving forward. You're setting up all these tech stacks and you're getting them in place. And how do they operate together already? Well, let's see. Well, can we get all this data together ourselves and actually use it ourselves? I really see this kind of thing of, hey, we need a person on staff that can consistently consolidate this and put it together and show it to us. One of my neighbors is a Power BI for Coca-Cola, and he has a team of 30 developers that do Power BI dashboards across all of Coca-Cola. And it's just because they need to consistently see what data, they have requests for it, and they show it. And it's kind of like, well, that makes sense though, right? Now you're actually giving it to the management teams exactly in hand. So this interoperability is huge. I really think it's something that I'm enjoying. Of course, this is my life, getting this data from one silo to the next. So, and then technology come to the field. I think if the normal person that's been around for a while is going to say, this is something that we've heard for 30 years now, oh, it's coming to the field. We're going to be using iPads. You're going to be out there in AR and not have to worry about anything. But I think what you don't understand, it's stuff like AlwaysAI. It's that edge stuff. It's not necessarily new technology that you have to adopt, but using the existing technology in the field to be even more efficient, even more ability to produce that building on time, on budget.
Marty, any thoughts on that one?
So we used to, in Silicon Valley, it was kind of a common, used to call it the rule of three. Any segment, ultimately, it comes down to three major players. And you can almost go through any technology segment, and you can see that over time play out. So it's just a natural thing. And maybe who knows why three, not four or two, but it tends to be three. Where you got to watch out is if it becomes just one, right? Then they have too much power and innovation stops. Usually when there's too much consolidation, innovation stops. But and then on the interoperability, yeah, I mean, you want companies that have APIs, strong APIs. If they don't, somebody says they're quote no code, you get a little nervous because it's like, okay, do you have APIs? Because I'm going to have to integrate with a broader tech stack. APIs are a good thing, not a bad thing. So interoperability is going to require APIs. We kind of snicker when we see, no code. It's like, really? So I can't do anything. So I think that's important. But yeah, anyway, there's going to be consolidation.
Yeah.
That's natural. And then strong APIs is really, really key.
Yeah. Yeah. And mapping it out. I mean, that's the one uniqueness that we have in this industry is mapping out the stakeholder process, because in those other ones, you're right. You don't usually have the weirdness of stakeholders that we do. And I like the power of three, because like the four horsemen of the apocalypse is what I always talk about. And like,
yeah, exactly.
If you read the book, The Four by Scott, it great book. But yeah, so hey, I'm going to move us on. So we wrap this one up, but looking ahead, non-residential construction forecast is slowing for 2023 to 2024. Look, there's the possibility that we're going to have an economic downturn. Things are a little bit unknown. We've also got, rising supply chain issues that are going to come back after us with what we're seeing going on in China. We're trying to invest in onshore manufacturing and doing more things here to shore up our supply chains, but that's going to take a while. And so looking forward into the future for construction companies, I think this article was great because they go back to, Ken Simonson, the chief economist for the AGC. He says forecasting is way more difficult because you can't look at the construction industry as a whole. We're sector-based, and all those sectors are moving differently. This is all about non-residential, so it moves out of that space and into, data centers, manufacturing facilities, Amazon pulling back and not doing as many new facilities as they had predicted in the past. If you're a construction company moving into 2023, you've got to be ready to be flexible. Have a plan, but be ready to adapt that plan at the drop of a hat in reaction to the way that things are going. It's also time to diversify. We're seeing this, and I kind of like to take this back to the last article. We were talking about the consolidation in software. Look, guys, we're seeing the consolidation in all of our worlds, right? You're seeing architectural companies buy up other architecture companies. You're seeing mechanicals buy up electricals and plumbers and vice versa. And you're seeing major MEPs come out. Like, these are the things. And they're doing that because in that world, you're buying up labor and knowledge in maybe an industry or a vertical that you're not used to. And if you want to be ready for 2023, 2024 and ride this thing out, and actually, this is my favorite one. I was sitting with somebody at Groundbreak at the end of the year, and they said, look, Jeff, during a downturn, some people hold on to things and they batten down the hatches. But you know, the ones that come out the other side is the ones that shoot the gap. They're ready, they take the risk, and they go. And so I think in 2023, it's change, adapt, overcome. That's going to be my mantra all year. So I really think this was a great bit of information. Jacob, as you're looking forward, I know you're in a unique spot. What are you thinking for 2023?
I want to emphasize real quick though on what you said. It's just we're an industry based on sectors. We're not necessarily non-residential and residential. There's so much inside of the non-residential. And really, you see some of these areas actually peak and while the others actually go down. I think this is COVID catching back up. Office space and developers, when they did everything before and people had to leave offices, they held on and they held on and they held on. People were starting to come back, but now we really have adopted this hybrid workflow. And that means that they don't need as much office space, and developers are sitting there with this office space. So it's hit them now. They were holding on. They were thinking people were going to finally come back. I think that's where a lot of this downturn can be hit, is that office space, that commercial area. If you turn though to healthcare is going to be booming right now. They actually had the opposite. When COVID hit, healthcare actually stopped a lot of construction because they had to just figure out other things. And now they're coming back around and booming on construction. I will say 2023 is going to be a huge year for healthcare. We're going to see it across the board.
Yep.
On top of that, it's manufacturing plants for anything as a computer chip or a EV battery.
EV battery.
Those two you're going to see across the board all 2023 explode thanks to that $1 trillion infrastructure and energy bill.
Well, and to your point, you're spreading out the world, right? Because they're not coming back to the office spaces. Well, guess what? Our power infrastructure and power plants are aging and aren't going to be able to keep up with it as we grow into rural areas. So pivoting in, looking at power plants, we're going to have to go there. So Marty, I'm interested. You've got a kind of unique view over a bunch of different sectors. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we're actually seeing just lots of energy in lots of different industries. So yeah, it's a downturn, and we keep hearing that from the press just incessantly telling us how bad things are going to be, et cetera. Meanwhile, back in the real world, there's like lots of people doing lots of interesting, innovative things. Maybe I'm in a bubble a bit because I'm working with people that might be more innovative in the sense of trying new technologies and so forth. But we see it in traditional industries, what I would call traditional, not in high tech, we're seeing it in manufacturing. We're seeing it in, big venue buildings, large real estate projects, construction. We're seeing, and these, I don't know, when there's a downturn or a threat of a downturn, maybe you just focus on what really matters. And you can also innovate and leapfrog your competition, right? Now's the time. If you feel you can do it, I mean, now's the time, right?
Yeah.
It's probably not the time to just pull back and get super conservative. It's like, look, focus on what matters and go ahead and innovate. You're going to have to anyway.
Yeah. Two things about that you're dead right on is, I hike with a friend of mine who, talks about the economy, and that's the world he lives in. And he's like, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I think you guys have all heard me say this before. If you keep telling yourself it's going to be bad and that's what you put out there, that of course it's going to happen. Why? Because, well, if you say a downturn's coming, then what is an economic downturn based on? It's based on consumer and, their confidence and what they're going to buy. So somebody in this process has to say, hey, I actually see all those things. And I agree with you, Jacob. We saw, critical health facilities continue to be under construction, but we saw elective surgery centers, elective things pull back and hold the reins to see what happens. Well, they're going full bore because that's all coming back. People are back out there. Yes, we're consuming and using spaces differently. And Marty, you're right. Look, it's not like football stadiums aren't full. It's not like we're not hitting capacity records places. Those things are happening. And construction, in my opinion, and always has been, a cornerstone of the U.S. economy and the world economy. And if we're positive and we're bullish, and I will tell you, every construction manager I come across, whether it's a project executive or even an IT guy, they're like, our backlogs are huge and we don't know what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. But I tell you, going forward, get your shovels in the ground, get your decisions made as fast as you can, and get into construction, because that will help you. We don't build halfway buildings here in the States, really. We don't leave them undone. So make sure you get them in the ground, because you're predictable and you can guarantee what you're going to do. I mean, not guarantee, but they can rely on the information you're giving them. So that's my go into 2023. Be positive. Look for those gaps, shoot those gaps. Marty, you're dead right. I like that. Thank you for stopping in, Marty, and on short notice joining us. I really appreciate you.
No, thank you. It was great.
Jacob, always a pleasure. Always the one who I know I can call the night before when I've done something misbooked, and you're going to bring it. So thanks for bringing it, buddy.
Absolutely, Jeff. Had a great time. Thank you, Marty. And here's the 2023.
Thank you for tuning in today to geek out for our interview with Marty Beard. To read all of our news stories, learn more about apps, workflows, and hardware, and to listen to the show, visit thecontechcrew.com. This is the ConTech Crew signing out. Until next time, enjoy the ride and geek out.